All right, so Golf Clash announced the well, tournament after tournament after tournament. So we've got the Euro Champions tournament has been announced, and that'll happen. When will that happen? On Monday after the 9-hole Cup. So we're going to be playing 3 different courses here. We're going to play Dreamwear Links, the Nordic Fjords, and Parc de Paris. Let's see here. So get out your notepad. So hole number 1, Dreamwear Links. This is Dreamwear Links hole number 2. Hole number 2 is Dreamwear Links hole number 3. Hole number 3 is Dreamwear Links hole number 1. Hole number 4 is Nordic Fjords hole number 2. Hole number 5 is Nordic Fjords hole number 6. Number 6 is Nordic Fjords hole number 5. Hole number 7 is Parc de Paris hole number 1. Hole number 8 is Parc de Paris hole number 4. And hole number 9 is Parc de Paris hole number 6. All right, so let's go track all these down. So what I did on the YouTube channel was I set up a playlist for Golf Clash Euro Champions Rookie Scouting Report. I'll put this video at the top, and I have 9 holes in here, and these are the 9 holes. So they're from different tournaments in the past. So if you watch this video, you can just walk through the playlist and go through some of these holes. I think I'm playing the holes a little bit different now, but there's pretty good examples here of all of the holes. So let's go check them out. Let's go see what we got. Dreamwear Links hole number 1 is going to be hole number 2 of Dreamwear Links, and we figured this hole out the last time we had this, and there is a spot down in this area right here with a grizzly. You could use, if you don't have a grizzly, you could use a backbone. It was plus 15% on the wind adjustment, and I was doing 1 per ring, so it was at max club. And it may not have been quite at max, but it was working out at 1 per ring with a 15% wind adjustment using a grizzly. And it was like very little. I'm going to have to go back through and watch the video on the adjustment, but it was like 1 backspin and just a little bit of, it was very little adjustment. And we were definitely getting this to drop throughout the last tournament that we played it in. And part of the deal is on some of these tournaments, we've played these holes and Golf Clash Notebook is not updated. And so it's trying to find out which holes we played these in last. I think this Dreamwear Links one, we played in the St. Patrick's Day just here recently. And during that tournament, we were definitely getting this hole to drop. Definitely. Coming into that particular tournament, having played this hole before and not really liking this hole, my thought process was that this hole was not going to be one of our good shots. But by the time that St. Patrick's Day tournament was over, I was definitely loving this hole. Definitely hole-in-oneable. Hole number 2 of the Euro Champions is going to be Dreamwear Links hole number 3. All right. So there are several ways that you can play this. I do see people trying to get over into this area, and I'm not a fan of trying to get over to there for a couple reasons. I think you can do it there. You can set it up so that you can try and get the bounce, bounce, and you're getting all the bounces right and everything works out and you can end up over here. But you're at the very end of your run. You've got the least amount of power when you're at the end of your run, and it's super hard to get caught up in this rough. And so I've seen people over here where they get caught up in the rough, and I've seen people that make it past. And you can make it past. It's not that you can't, but I don't normally like to do this type of shot at the end of my run when there is a much better area for us to get to where we can have a straight up shot to the cup. And so you can go out here or you can go here. And I'm a bigger fan of going out into this area. Let's look at the, hold on. I think when you come out from this area right here, though, you may have a rough bump, a more viable rough bump when you're coming into it off of this peninsula, like right in this area right here. Whereas if you're coming at it from this area, there is a rough bump that you can do here, but at this angle, I'm usually not a big fan of doing rough bumps where you're coming in and you're trying to land there. It's better when you're coming in this way and you've got rough on either side of you that you can work with. Getting down into this zone over here is actually pretty easy. To me, this is one of those shots that whenever I see a shot, whenever Play Dynamic comes out with a brand new hole and we have this type of movement where we're from the tee box and the greens over here and we're trying to get our ball to come up into this area. I mean, covering this swing right here is definitely, I think curl whenever I'm thinking of these shots. So the way I set this shot up, and I have two ways that I set it up. I take a rock and I'm 3 3/4 rings off of this transitional surface right here. Maximum curl, maximum side spin. Using a rock and a kingmaker, 3 3/4 rings off, and trying to bring the ball just out into this area. And I want to set that shot up. The 3 3/4 rings is set up so that if you hit a great to the left or the right or a perfect, you're still out in the clear. Now, if I take my QB here, I'm going to set it up the same way, only I'm going to be 5 rings off of this transitional surface. With a kingmaker, maximum right hand side spin, maximum right hand curl. I'm not sure on the top spin. I'm going to have to go back and look to see whether or not I was able to use all of the top spin on the club or if I was having to short it up a little. I think I was using all of the top spin. That's first shot. So the goal is to try and get yourself out into, this range out here. And what I really want is on my second shot, and I'm using a sniper. What I really want on my second shot is I want my red line to be in front of this area, like right in there, so that I can start my shot on that side of the sand. Because if you have to start your shot over here, you're coming in at this angle, and so you have to cover this swing with side spin. And even with a kingmaker, it may not be enough side spin to be able to cover that swing. And what you don't want to do is have to come in here and use any curl, because your chances of putting it in are going to be extremely diminished. If you can start off in front of this sand, you can go straight at it. Now, if you've got a lower developed sniper and it doesn't have any of its distance, then a guardian may work. I don't think you need, you'd probably still have to have an upper developed guardian. So at that point, you'd probably have an upper developed sniper. But if you've got lower developed clubs, Big dog will work really good for you. You're not going to get the ball guide to come up to it, but the goal is that whatever wood you have in your bag, the wood that you have in your bag that gives you the best ball guide and can cover this distance, where you can get in front of that sand, that is the optimal way to go at it. I know from shooting this hole in the past, and I know that the last time we played this hole, my teammate Kyle and I had been working on this, and he was catching some albies on it. And I swear that we need to take off about 10%. We need to actually take off about 10%. It may be 5, but we need to take off some wind, because the greens here and that landing pad we're hitting at's here, and it is an uphill shot. And I think that where I'd ended on the last one was at -10, and I think my teammate Kyle was also at -10. And we've been working on that number, because the number that was going out there in the community, I think at the start of the week, was a plus number. But we started actually having some success on this hole once we got that under control. So just recognize that there is a wind adjustment here due to elevation. And you're going to have to dial that in from where you're coming at it. If you're coming at it from the other side and you're trying to do the rough bump, or if you're coming at it from this side, or if you're in a spot every time where you're having to bring it around and do it, but we have some kind of an adjustment we need to do here. Yes, sir. All right, that was hole number 2. Hole number 3 of the Euro Champions is Dreamwear Links hole number 1. Hole number 1. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can play this. You can play over to And I've tried this a few times in one-on-one, just stinking around. You can play over to this side right here. Now, I know that you can get up into this area. So the question is why would you play over here? Well, here's the reason why. Is there is a shot coming in from over there, and I've seen people do that shot. But I mean, if you look at the way that the green is set up there, where you have to engage the green to the distance from where you can start to engage the fairway to where the cup is, it's pretty short. So, I mean, if you come in from this side, it's backspin. I originally thought people were coming in there for a rough bump, but I don't see where the rough bump is unless it's not showing up on this, or if there's just a really fine line of rough down there. But if there is, you could do a rough bump from that area. And I think this picture might not be accurately representing it. I think there is a little teeny bit of rough down there that you could use from this area, and you can get a straight up shot at it. And if there is, it is narrow. And I don't know that if there is, I would, the wind really in this situation would have to be either blowing this way or blowing this way if for me to use that rough up. I mean, I would want it to be blowing along that rough and not against it, so that I have to make some super spectacular adjustment there. Typically, and I like to play this hole. I've played this hole with an extra mile. I've played it with a rock. I've played it with a QB. I've played it with a big topper. Your goal is you want to get as far out here as you can so that you can get into your short iron range. And it's a little bit, the farther you can get out, the longer you can get your run going to the cup. So if you're out in this area right here, your angle coming into the cup, you're swinging on that arc. So the closer you get, if you're having to come at it from this trajectory and you can start right here, it's pretty steep on this side. So you're trying to get up on the flat, and so you don't have much room. So you're going to need more backspin. So the farther out there you are, if you're out in this area, if you're out in this area so that your angle is coming in like this, you're going to need more backspin than you would if you were out in this area where you can pick up more of this green and run it to the hole. So if you don't have a short iron that's got some backspin, the farther out you hit, the better off you'll be. I'm going to start the week off. I think the video that I shot that's in the playlist, I used a claw on the second shot coming in, and I don't mind a claw. I like a claw. I think a thorn you could use a thorn if you're looking for backspin. You're going to get better ball guide. It's not quite as accurate as a claw, but you're going to get a much better ball guide. I know that you can use a hornet because I've come in on this with a hornet before, but I think the farther out you get, the better it is with a hornet. To get that distance out there, on my notes, I'm going to use a big topper and a kingmaker. You want to get out somewhere out into the 360 yard range. I think that's where I was aiming for the last time we played this. Definitely bring in a hornet as my second club. And we'll see if I need to adjust that, if I need to bring something different. Start off with a hornet. I was doing plus 10% to the cup is where I left off on the last time we played this hole. And I'm not sure about that number, but that's where I left off. Trying to get out into this area right here. With a big topper, your starting spot's out in this area, and your worry point is this right here. So you can clip this if you use a big topper, but you've got so much topspin on there that more than likely it'll roll out and you'll end up being short up here. But if you can get the trajectory right through the gap, you can get way up there with a big topper, and you don't have to use any overpower. Not if you're using a 3-power ball. All right. If you got an extra mile 9, you'll probably be able to do about the same. And you may have you got a little bit more raw power, so it may put you in a little bit better spot. Definitely trying to get as far up here as you possibly can. A typical landing area here is going to be right over on this side, somewhere in that neighborhood. But if you can bring yourself farther forward, it's just going to help you out. Hole number 4. And we're leaving Dreamwear Links, and now we're on Nordic Fjords. If I can spell today, Nordic Fjords. Hole number 2. Hole number 2 is going to be hole number 4 of the Euro Champions. All right, this hole right here, there is a shot on here, and the last time we played this, I didn't quite get it worked out. And so I'm going to bring a sniper and a nav. And I have hit hole-in-ones on this hole before, but there's a spot. And the thing about this hole is and it's one of those spots where you're way in the heck back here, instead of like trying to bring it close to it. Where you can get a little bit of a funnel action, and your ball guide will lead you right up to it. But the deal is it's hard to find the spot. This is one of those holes very similar to one of the holes that we just played in the Redwood Cup, where what we need to know is what our spin is. So are we putting on one top spin or one back spin and a half a bar or a curl? And so when we land on the hole, we immediately set up the spin and then go out here and wiggle it around until we can find the spot where that spin works. And then that's where we take our shot from. Instead of trying to come out here and trying to find a spot and then trying to set up spin, because a lot of times on these holes, we'll just come out and find a spot and then we'll adjust our spin to make that spot work. This particular hole, it doesn't work that well. What you want is you want to have your spin. You want to know what your spin needs to be. Set your spin up and then go out there and find the spot for that spin, because it's one of those holes where the ball guide will appear and disappear and appear and disappear, and it's all over the place. You can get right up on it, and I've made a bunch of hole-in-ones on this hole by getting up here and putting more backspin on it and being lower down in the deal. But there is a funnel that's on this hole that I think we can increase our odds of getting hole-in-one if we can find that funnel and just like standardize it. But I think we have to start by establishing what our spin is first. And once we get our spin stuff, then it'll be a lot easier for us to find that funnel over and over and over and over again. But we definitely have a very good chance of getting hole-in-one on this. So both of the first two par threes we have pretty good opportunities. And I actually, as weird as it may sound, I think the first par three, we have our best shot, and this one right here would be our second best. All right, hole number 5, Nordic Fjords, hole number 6. What do we got? All right, this hole right here is definitely a par 4 that we can get on in one. And I used an extra mile. You could use a Titan or a Kingmaker. Now, if you have a power 5 ball, and I don't know that I have any power 5 balls left after the Redwood Cup, and they didn't offer any power 5 balls that week. It was power 4s. So I don't know that I have any left. So I may have to take this with a power 3 ball. With a power 3 ball and a max overpower shot, your red line at max overpower is right up in this area, and you're trying to get your first bounce in this area so that your second bounce is right there and you're bleeding towards the green. And you can go up the back of this and it will backboard a little bit back down to the cup. I've taken a lot of shots from right here in front where you're doing the chip up to get on there. But this is definitely, this par 4 right here, we definitely need to get an eagle on this hole. I mean, this is not a gimme hole, but you have to get an eagle on this hole. I mean, there's just way too many people in the bracket that are going to end up with eagles on this, just because you can do it with a 3 power ball. So if you have a 4 power or a 5 power ball, you're just increasing your odds, especially if you have a 5 power ball, because you might not have to do any overpower or very little to get it up there. So this is one of those par 4s that we can actually get on the green, and we don't have to take some long chip to try and get eagle, where we can take a putt or a short right off the green chip to get that eagle. So we need to get an eagle on this hole. No doubt about it. No bow to doubt it. All right, that was hole number 6. That's hole number 5 of the Euro Champions. And you can go, okay, all right. You can go out here and lay up. But if you can go out there and lay up, as long as you don't end up in the drink right here, you can pretty much recover from anywhere over here, even if you've got lower developed stuff. And this, when we talk about risk versus reward, barring ending up in the drink, all this takes is a power 3 ball and an extra mile. and you can access the tip of this fairway down here. So if you can access the tip of this fairway out here, I don't think that, at least talking about my game, there is no way that I'm not going to go for that green in one on a par four, as opposed to just coming out here and doing a layup. I mean, I'll roll the dice. If I get up here and get in the spot that I want, then I've got an eagle. If I don't, then I've still got a shot at eagle, but it's either from the sand or from the rough. From over here, you just have a shot at eagle. And so I'm gonna go for this green every time. Every time. I mean, even in one-on-one coming out here with a marlin, I'm gonna go for that green every time. Every time. Just saying. All right, hole number 6 is Nordic Fjords. Hole number 5. Da 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 da. All right, this is another hole that this is a big, long. Some of the things about these Nordic Fjords is they're big, long wood shots into the green, and this hole is no exception. Now, there is an optical illusion on this course, on this hole. If you look really hard, you will notice that your eye is telling you that there are some fairways out here. Those are optical illusions. And the greenskeepers keep those, and they have big parties out here. And when they have people and they're playing on the tournaments and stuff, they let people stand out in this area because nobody uses this side. I've seen a few people use this side out here and get out here and actually get up, but they had a monster equipment and they got lucky as hell, because if you hit over here, the best that you're going to get is an eagle. I mean, and you're basically putting your eagle at risk if you hit over here. So pretty much everybody who's trying to get an Albie on this hole is going to do this very simply by putting themselves right up here at the top of this and then coming at it, preferably with whatever wood you have that has the best ball guide and is the most accurate. I mean, those are your two key things: ball guide, accuracy. So if you've got a sniper. Don't have a sniper, a Viper. As far as, let's see what I was putting on here. I didn't write down how much spin I was putting on my sniper, but you might be able to get it done with a Viper. There is a distance issue here. This is why you need to bring a 3-power ball. I mean, I'm a big fan on these par 5s. You got to respect par 5s. And I can tell you right now, the big ball is not for the drive. The big ball is for this shot right here, because your red line, if you don't bring a big ball, it's going to be out here. And if you don't have a club that's got any topspin, you're going to have a hard time getting on there. And the closer you can get, the less topspin you can use. You always want to take those shots. I mean, me personally, like my personal game, I always like to take the shots coming into the cup where I'm engaging just a little teeny bit of backspin. I feel more comfortable on shots when I'm engaging a little bit of backspin because I have more control over the ball. When you put a lot of topspin on there, you're not really sure sometimes as far as how much rollout you're going to get. And when you can engage, so the closer you can get up over here, the better. And the only way you're going to do that is, number one, to get some good distance here, but number two is to bring a bigger ball. So don't be confused when you come in and go, well, hey, I can take that drive shot with this ball. And the bigger the ball you have for the second shot, the better. Getting over here on the drive, I mean, look at the area that we're trying to go through. A rock works, a quarterback works. You can use an extra mile. I'm going to take this shot with a quarterback and a kingmaker. I'm going to use a half a bar of topspin, maximum left-hand side spin, and a little teeny bit of left-hand curl. So let me get back here so we can see the deal. So the tee box, where the tee box is leading you off here, you're trying to get to this area, but you can't start off over here. So you have to start off like this on this track where you're starting off in front of the sand. So your ball guide's going off in this direction. So I'm going to put on left-hand side spin and a little teeny bit of curl to bring it back over to the course. And we want to get as close as we can to the front, but we don't want to risk ever rolling into the front, because if you roll into the front right there, you're sunk. So I'm going to use a half a bar of topspin with a QB. You can do the same shot with a rock. If you've got lower developed stuff, a rock might work better because a rock gives you more raw distance, and its bounces might be better as far as in front of the sand. So if you've got lower developed stuff, a rock might be a better choice. There is a max overpower hook shot that you can do on this hole, and I've seen it done several times where you're trying to get over to this side. The deal on that is that if you can do a max overpower hook shot, it puts you in short iron range, or if it puts you on, it's definitely worth doing, or it's definitely worth exploring. But this one right here is fraught with danger because you have all of this drink area where you can actually get out of bounds. And it gives you a long iron shot that's obviously a long iron shot would be a little better than a wood, but for the risk versus reward, I don't know. And you have to bring out a bigger ball. I don't know that it's worth the wasting of a bigger ball and the risk of getting into the water just so that you can change from a wood to a long iron when you can take this shot with your wood right here over and over and over as the week goes on to try and dial in that shot to the cup. And I didn't write down any of my spin stuff or what I'm doing on the shot going in. I did go through and watch the videos, but I didn't write down all of the stuff. I just wanted to make sure I had holes that were the holes that we were playing. So this hole right here, definitely very easy eagle. Not the easiest albie to get just because we're hitting it at such distance, and there's such a long path here that it can hit, and you can see the movement that's out there on the green. So you can catch one of those spots and it can move the ball a little bit, and it may or may not go in. But this is definitely an albiable hole. It's just not the best albiable hole out there, but it's absolutely an easy eagle. All right, that was hole number 6. Hole number 7. And we're on the Parc de Paris. The Parc de Paris. And Parc de Paris. Hole number 7 is going to be hole number 1. All right. Extra mile Titan, max OP. I'm going to start at 6 topspin. Maximum right-hand curl. And my whole goal is to get on in 1. Okay, there's several ways that you can play this hole. Let's talk about all of our options. Option number 1 is you can lay it up out here and you can bring it in. This is a difficult second shot because the green, this picture here, does not accurately represent the movement that's on this green. So when you're looking at this shot right here, going from this area right here, coming in, when you engage this hill, where that rough's at, so that rough is like right there, and then it drops down onto the green. And so there's a big hill right there. So when you're coming at it from this area trying to get to the green, you can do a rough bump up here at the top of the hill. And I've done that before. And I'm sure I've done it before where I've been successful, and I've done it before where I've epic failed, and I was doing it one-on-one, just dinking around. And you can get that rough bump to work for you, but it's best served on your second shot if you bring a club. If you're out in this area when you're coming in, if you bring a club that's got a little bit of backspin, because you're going to have to hit it on that downhill slide, and you're going to need the backspin to be able to stop it up. The other way you can do it is you can go from your first bounce out in this area and you can bring yourself over here. And there's 2 ways to do it. You can try and clear yourself completely so you get all the way to the front, or you can clip this rough and roll out. And so we've got, I think this is more like the long iron, short iron type deal as far as shots coming in. With your short iron out here, you're still engaging that the same way. I did notice that when you're on this hole and you're coming into it, it seems like it takes a little bit of an irregular bounce, either from this side or from this side coming into the hole. But you do have 2 shots that you can do out here. You can do this one, and you can get this one done with just about anything out there as far as like driver. Obviously, for this type of driver, if you're bringing it over from this side and bringing it over, QB works really good. If you got an extra mile and you're bringing out a bigger ball, you can probably start on this side and just try and woe it up before it gets to the sand. And I do know that there are 2 ways. You can try and get out, or you can try and do the rough bump to bleed out. I'm going to be coming over to this fairway, trying to blast through this rough area and just catch this fairway and bleed that either down onto the green or just leave myself here with a short chip. I found myself in multiple different areas here. I have found myself, and I think on the video I actually hit it long and I was back here behind the trees. And I've been caught up in this rough a few times. And I've been caught up in these trees. This is an exception rather than the rule, but you can get caught up behind those trees if you catch a great to the right. I think you catch a two or three ring great to the right, and it could be bad. when you're looking at this shot, I have a marker spot. So like this red tree right here, this red tree looks like this. It comes up like this, and then it comes, and then its branches go like this, and there's a spot where it kicks out, and that's usually where my ball guide's going over. So I'm in this area. It does carry just a little bit farther into this hole than what it seems like it's going to. So like your red line may be here, and with the wind, so you would think we've got our ring sets, and let's say we're at 4.2 miles per hour as the wind, and we're taking the wind out, and we're using an extra mile. Well, an extra mile is 2.1 per ring, and we would take out 2 rings of wind, right? That's how it works. So you would think that conversely, you could go, well, hey, I'm not going to take the wind out. I'm going to leave the wind in. And so you could push up against your red line and you could say, hey, I need 2 rings of power. I'm about 2 rings of power short, and this wind represents 2 rings of power. So the wind's going to push me forward 2 rings. You would think that it would work that way. And in some cases, for all intents and purposes, in most cases, that's a good way to start off on it. But in this area right here, it actually pushes it closer to 3 rings. So I think it's going downhill as it's coming here. So the farther you're allowing it to fly forward, the more that it's traveling just because of elevation. So you're actually getting a little bit more distance here than what it looks like. Because when you bring a 3 power ball here, if you've got an extra mile 7, extra mile 8, it'll look like you're going to be way short. But try it out. You're just trying to catch this edge. There's a spot down here. You're just trying to catch it. You want to give yourself enough room on this shot. So like if you think of, let's do our angle here. We're coming in from the tee box and we're trying to make it to the green. And so we need to cover this distance. And so we're trying to get into here, and I'm trying to get as far to the left as possible to give myself as much room as I can from these trees, because I know that I'm going to have to come in with some curl in order to get around those trees, in order to cover that gap. So I'm going to need to be on this trajectory in order to get it through. So the farther I can get to the left, the more I can give myself room on the right so that my curl's effective. That's why when I hit the trees on those occasions I've hit the trees, I've hit like a 3 ring great to the right. So I hit right here and I had max curl on, and then bam, I'm right into the trees. So trying to get yourself around it so that you're coming more in on this line. You don't have to get like out into this area. Like you don't have to get yourself so far around the trees back here. Hey, bastard. You don't have to get so far behind it that you're coming in here. You're more wanting to come in at the top so that you're rolling down and then it rolls down through it, because there's a hill over here too. This green's got a lot of movement on it. But definitely trying to hit out in here with an extra mile and trying to get on in 1. And once again, we're on a par 4. And if we can get on in 1 on a par 4, I'm going for 1. And all it takes is a tight and an extra mile. So you can lay up and have a shot going in. You can lay up, have a shot going in. Both of these shots are makeable, but there's no give-me's here. Or we can try and get on in 1. I'm going to try and get on in 1. Hey, I would rather have gone for it in 1 and have to take a shot out of the rough than to have to take one of these shots every single time. because if you can catch this right, you can get on and make a putt, get your eagle, and move on to the next hole. This is a very eagleable hole. I mean, we have two very eagleable par fours here, the middle one and this one, and we have to pick. We're going to have to pick one of those up. We really need to pick them both up. All right, that was Parc de Paris, hole number 1. That's hole number 7 of the Euro tournament. The Euro champion. So hole number 8 of the Euro champions is going to be Parc de Paris, hole number 4. And I'm going to bring a sniper and a navigator. Now, I've been playing, I will tell you that I'm going to play this hole totally different than I played it in the video. I think in the video that I show in the playlist, I brought a Guardian and I went straight up to the cup. And in the past, I've always played, that's how I've played these holes, is by bringing it straight up to the cup. Hold on one second. All right, sorry about that. Work phone. All right, where were we? So in the past, I've come at it with backspin, and like I said, I demoed it with my Guardian and the playlist. But I'm going to come at this and do a rough bump. And I believe, you can use, I believe this was it's a wood shot coming in there, obviously, because I was using a Guardian before. So I'd probably use a sniper just to give me better ball guide. But I think you can do it with any wood that's out there, but why wouldn't you want to bring the one that's got the best ball guide and the best accuracy? And I believe that there's like a 20% wind adjustment. And if I remember correctly, here's the cup. You set up on the left-hand edge of the cup with like a 20% wind adjustment. It's somewhere right in that neighborhood, but there is a really good rough bump here. So I have to see which way the wind's blowing on this rough bump. Sometimes when, like if we had this type of wind here where we had a tailwind and you're having to adjust over the sand, sometimes the sand goes, here's the rough and here's the sand, and it's just a nice easy pull. No fuss, no muss. But when you're in sand where you've got like this over here, where you've got these really steep edges where the sand goes like this, and then so when you pull off the rough and you go into the sand, it makes a jump. I'm not really into that, because it's really hard to get it so that just like every single time you're making that adjustment. If they give us a wind that's kind of going with the rough, like if it was in this direction right here so that we're pulling against the rough, when you make that wind adjustment, if you make a bad adjustment or if you get it wrong, or if you hit it great to the left or the right, you're going to still end up in the rough. And so you're still moving in a forward direction and you're all good to go. These types of roughs can be very treacherous when you've got to move, where you're like, if you've got this kind of wind and you've got to move off of the rough, and you want to make sure your adjustment's dead on, because if you make a bad adjustment, you could easily find yourself clipping the fairway and then going for a ride. Or on the other side of the coin, you made a bad adjustment, you hit the sand and end up in the sand. The farther up here you can get, the better it would be. But I think where the rough bump is, I think that where it kind of like lends itself to being is more kind of like in this area. But if you could get up here farther, it's even better, because then you give yourself tons of maneuverability and you're starting to take the sand completely out of play. But I'm going to be exploring this rough bump all week. That's the only way I'm going to be coming at this hole. I like the Guardian shot. The Guardian shot is almost an absolute guaranteed birdie, and it'll get you close. And I have made some hole-in-ones on this, but I think really percentage-wise, if we're trying to make a hole-in-one, that we're going to be better off doing a rough bump. And I'm going to start off with a sniper and a navigator. Aim at the left-hand edge of the cup, rough bump. And I'm going to start my adjustments with a plus 20 and then see where that takes me. All right. Hole number 9. Hole number 9 of the Euro champions is going to be at the Parc de Paris. Hole number 9. Okay, on my notes. I've got it set. Okay. All right. Here we go. I've got my notes that I'm going to bring an extra mile. You can use a Kingmaker or you can use a Katana. And I think in most cases that you can probably use a Katana on this. But if you're having any distance issues, or if you've got lower developed clubs, you can use a Titan on this too. there are benefits to bringing out power three balls if you do end up short, or if you do end up and you're in a varying area out here. The power three ball can get you through. With a katana, you need to make sure that you're in the spot that you want to hit. Because if there's a spot out here that you're going, hey, I need to be in that spot, then that spot will work with a katana. But if you're back here and something happened, that katana may end up leaving you a little short. So ball can be an issue, but a side spin ball works better. And I'm probably, I haven't decided how I know a bunch of different ways to play this hole. And I'm probably gonna bring my guardian, but I'm gonna play it by ear on like how I'm gonna play, because the shot coming out here, you really have, I mean, you've got one choice. You're in this area. You got one bounce here. You got a second bounce that's right about where that finger's at, and then you're moving it forward. Now you can opt to try and get as much distance as you can, or you can lay it up here more towards the top of the shadow. So if you're trying to hit, if you want to engage the green by coming in on the right-hand side, then obviously you're better off by only trying to gain the distance so that you're even with the top of that shadow, because you want to come in on this side. So like I like to take a guardian shot from this side right here, where I do a backspin, side spin, curl shot, and I'm trying to bring it to the cup. I'm always super close, and I think I've made it once. I mean, it's not a high percentage. I mean, it's not an Albie shot, but what it is it's a 100% guarantee go get your eagle and go home shot. So if you're coming at it for whatever reason, you're either bouncing off of this island, which you can do, and you would have a little bit more control if you bounced off over here and then tried to bring it around, but you're just putting all of this stuff into play. But if you want to come at the hole on the right-hand side, then you need to only be in this area. Because if you overhit this and you get out into this area, your angle now, you're not going to be able to get that angle. Hey, you little rat bastards. Hey. So if you're here and you get all the way up to the front, then your shot to the green, now you're having to go around it. So if you're trying to go to this side, you want to be out in this area. If you're trying to go to this side, the farther out you can hit, the better. Okay? And it may be an issue because it is kind of difficult to get all the way up to the front. But if you get all the way up to the front, you have several options. So if you're in this area, your option number one is that you can go from around the trees and then try and bring it over. And I've tried this shot a bunch of times. There's a big backboard on the backside of the screen. And if you're out in this area right here and you're trying to use side spin and stuff to bring it over to try and like keep it on the flat to run it to the cup, it can be very difficult where you're getting caught up in that downhill slide, and it can be very difficult to like get your line to the hole. What you can do is you can hit through those trees, and there is a rough bump. There is a rough bump that you can do. There's several areas down here that could potentially be rough bumps, but there is a rough bump that's right here where you're hitting between those trees, and you have zero room for error. I mean, zero room for error. Zero. So if you're one of those people that hits perfect all the time and you want to give yourself an Albie look on it, this rough bump is probably the best, like legitimate, like something that you could make over and over and that's repeatable. There is a rough bump that you could do from down here. I think the shot trying to bounce up from here to get on is there is a spot out here that you could get to where you're trying to bring it in front of this tree, and you're trying to keep your ball so that it's just on the flat part where you're just trying to gauge the cup. I think if you were trying that shot, that's probably a pretty legitimate way to go at it if you're trying to really get Albie. But if you're doing anything that's engaging this backboard, or you're having to engage the backboard either by coming in here and trying to get your roll to come down, or by starting off on this side and trying to use that backboard, that it's not that you can't get an Albie, it's just that your chances are, it's going to be almost impossible to repeat it. I think trying to set up doing like a rough bump here, or trying to find a path where you can stay on the flat, because it's flat. Like this area here is flat. Everything up here is uphill. And so trying to find, if you really want to increase your odds and at least try and get an out. But this is a hole that I think a lot of people are going to have a hard time. There's a lot of people that are going to epic fail on this hole, and you really don't need to be epic failing on this hole. And the people are going to have problems on the first shot and on the second shot. But there is a way, there is some ways that we could increase our odds of getting Albie, but I think are really risky. Doing this rough bump through those trees is really, really risky. I know the last time we played this drive, just as a side note, the last time I played this drive, I did a plus 10%. But this drive is wind dependent. So if the wind's blowing one way, you may do a 10%. If the wind's blowing from a different direction, depending on which wind we get, we're going to have to adjust. We're going to have to make an adjustment for this drive, because it is super easy to end up in the sand. And my teammate Mike D can attest to this. He hates this hole. And he hates this hole because he's always in the sand. I mean, it's very easy. You can hit a perfect shot, and you have to make, there is an adjustment that we have to make, or you can end up in the sand. It's a very tricky thing, but if once we make it, we should be fine. All right. So just kind of glancing at the holes, we've got a couple par fours here that I think, looking at hole number, how much time we got on this? Hell, we got tons of time. Look at that. I got like 10 minutes. Hole number 1. Let's roll through. No, well, we're not on all of these holes. Let's look at the par fours here. The par 4 from this one, which is hole number 8. Or excuse me, hole number 4. That's a par 3. And hole number 1 was the par 4. So this is a eagleable par 4. I mean, this is a hole that we need to get an eagle on. I'm looking at the Nordic Fjords hole, which is Nordic Fjords hole number 6. Let's go look at that one real quick. Nordic Fjords. I wish Golf Clash Notebook would get their act together. I'm just surprised that nobody in the community has taken it over or tried to buy it. Or Nordic Fjords hole number 6. Oh yeah, we have to get an eagle on this one. I mean, this is not an option. I mean, that makes 2 of them. That, I mean, like, we have to get an eagle on this one. The Parc de Paris one, we need to get an eagle, but we have to get an eagle on this one. I mean, so really, I mean, this right here puts our minimum score at minus 13, and the one that we need, we need to get that one in Parc de Paris. We really are going to need to pick that up at least 1 out of every 2 on once, at least once per round. So, I mean, that's like 13 and a half would be our minimum score. Let's go look at the Dreamwear Links par 4. I can't remember what that one was. That's the big topper one. And so that will be the more difficult one of the bunch. Dreamwear Links. Hole number 1. Yeah, so this one right here will be the more, I mean, it's still absolutely eagleable. But of the par 4s, it will be absolutely the hardest, because the other 2 we can get on in 1. I don't know that we can get on in 1 here. So, I mean, just looking at the minimum scores, I mean, I have to, I mean, realistically, the minimum score is minus 13 and a half. So I hate to write that down for a minimum score, but we really need to be, I'm going to say that the minimum score is like minus 13.5. And my minimum's got to be minus 14. I mean, I have to pick up those 2 par 4s each time. I mean, that's it. Like, if you're trying to be at the top of the bracket, you're going to have to pick those up. So that puts your minimum round score at minus 28. And then you need to pick up ones from there. And we have a couple par 3s that are absolutely hole-in-oneable. And we've got Oh, excuse me. We've got some par fives that give us some or Albie opportunities. So we do have room in this tournament to pick some shots up, but just like thinking minimum score, I mean, it's got to be 13, 13 and a half right there. But I'm going to count my minimum score at minus 14. That's like where I want to, I don't want to see anything worse than minus 14. All right, that was the Euro champions. I will finish this video off. I'll load it up, and then I will put it in the Euro playlist, and I'll make sure that it's at the top of the Euro champions rookie scouting report. And hopefully everybody has a great week. I guess we're going to get to be able to practice these holes. We've got this Oasis tournament, the Oasis 9-hole cup, and we're not going to be able to practice any of those. So we could go practice the Parc de Paris and the Dreamwear links, and I don't know if we can get Nordic Fjords. I'm not sure where they're at. We have had so many tournaments over the last, it seems like 12 years. I mean, it seems like every freaking week we've had a tournament. At least for the last 3 months, we've had 3.5 months. I think we've had 2 weeks where we didn't have something. And so it's just become a blur. So by the time all of the stuff comes out, I haven't had a chance to like play like one-on-one stuff. I haven't had a lot of opportunities to play. Let's see where we can play here. Nope. Dreamwear links in Tour 5. I guess that's all we can play. I guess that's it. Dreamwear links is all we're going to be able to eke out. Yeah, we can't even, yeah, that's it. That's it. So we can play some Tour 5 and get some Dreamwear links, unfortunately. But that'll at least give us the first 3 holes in the tournament and give us a little bit of practice on those. I think that the Nordic Fjords and the Parc de Paris holes are going to be pretty straightforward. We should be able to just start really kind of start the week off where we're already starting to dial in our elevation adjustments, and everything else is already set. So we should have a pretty good tournament, be able to pick this stuff up pretty quick. All right, thanks for watching, and hopefully everybody has a great 9-hole cup. And I will stream some rounds this week when I go through to do on Thursday. Thursday and Friday, I'll stream some rounds for the 9-hole cup just so that we can get that ball rolling. All right. Thanks for watching.